live edition of the Healing Words podcast. And the Healing Words podcast is where I get authors in and we talk about the story behind the story. I had the idea to start this live edition because I wanted our audience to be able to interact, to ask questions, to get help, all of that. And this is our inaugural program. We've had a couple of glitches, but we really wanted to press through and bring this to you today because April is Financial Literacy Month. And if you're like me and like a lot of us, we've gotten some strange news in the mail. Some of our retirements don't look the way they are. Some of us are facing job loss, and some of us are really feeling the bite of this current economy. So that's why I'm really glad we have tonight's guest. Before I introduce you to her and allow her to introduce herself, I just want to say a couple of things. We have Rita has generously given us some great handouts, so you're going to walk away with some things in hand that you can use. One person is going to win a book of her choosing, and she's going to tell us the merits of that book later. But we want you to engage. We want you to interact. Ask any questions in the chat, and make sure you put 2 question marks in front of them. Stay to the end of the show, and you'll find out if you're someone who's won that gift, that book. Okay, so now that we've got that out of the way, again, I want to thank you for your patience and your grace. Really wanted to press through and bring this to you today. My guest, Rita Taylor Stewart, started her work career in banking, moved into ministry, and now she's working as a personal finance coach and educator, which she calls a ministry. So I've given you that much. I'm going to introduce Rita and let her tell you a little bit more about herself.
Hello, everyone. Pamela, thank you so much for the invitation. It's just an honor and a privilege to be able to be with you and your audience this evening. And as Pamela has said, my journey has been from banking to ministry to now personal financial coaching, which to me is also ministry. And for me, I will say this, I am adamant about coming alongside women and some men as well. But my goal is to ensure that women understand their personal financial power so that they can position themselves such that their money will last them for the rest of their days. And there's a reason why I have that passion for that. And Pamela's familiar with that story, if you're ready for that one.
I am ready for that story, but I wanted to say one thing before we got started. When you and I were talking about this, the title that came up in my head was Plan, Don't Panic.
Yes.
There's plenty to panic about now, but tell us why we should be planning and not panicking.
Well, that's an excellent question. And I have to say, in light of everything that's going on in the economy right now, we do find that some people actually are freezing up. They're literally like stuck because they're so overwhelmed by what's happening. Some people won't open up the mail, Pamela, in terms of looking at their 401k, so they won't log in, they won't look at it. But here's the opportunity. If you will take the time to literally look at your numbers to understand where you are and then map a game plan from there. But if you continue to wander in the unknown in terms of what your position is, that you're going to continue to feel like you're living in that chaos and continuing to buy into the narrative that's out there in the marketplace. You have to know where you stand financially. You have to have the conversations with your financial person and or with your spouse, etc., to know where you stand.
Okay, so let's go all the way back. There is a story about one of your ancestors,
Yes,
and it really is proof that because I really believe small steps lead to great things.
yes,
We don't have to worry if we don't have a great big pile of money, just a small step. So tell us that story.
yes. So one of the stories I had shared with Pam in our time together before was that, well, I'm gonna step back a little bit further. When I was a young girl, my grandmother always took me to the bank with her whenever she had to go to the bank on Friday afternoons. And I can remember being a young girl just peering up over the bank counter and in this stately building in terms of finances and money. And as I got older, she always she would ask me to go to the bank for her. So she then trusted me enough based on me modeling what she did to go to the bank. Well, my grandfather also was one who just had a very poignant impact on me in terms of personal finances because one of the things he did that Pamela is referencing, my grandfather was a logger, okay? He wasn't some lawyer or, doctor, what have you. He was actually, he worked with his hands. He was a logger. But one of the things he did was he had established an annuity. Now, based on the income that he has, he put away what he could and he leveraged compounding, which many of us really need to take heed to. But as a result of my grandfather's commitment, Pamela, his money lasted him the rest of his days. And there was even money left over for the rest of my grandmother's days. Then listen to this. My grandmother lived 15 years longer than my grandfather. So she lived until 98, and we were still using that money that my grandfather had put away to help her with her living expenses. Now, understand for her, her expenses were nominal, but that's irrelevant. It still was enough money to carry her through. And today, Pamela, I still have some of that fund, those funds that help me with my 78-year-old uncle that is still here. It's incredible. The key is to get started, to know where you stand, and to leverage compounding. And he said, make sure Laura never runs out of money. That's my grandmother's name. That's what my grandfather told me. And she never ran out of money. It's incredible.
To those who are watching who don't understand what compounding is, give us a definition of compounding.
That is so good. That is so good. So that's where you have an opportunity to say, here's the money I have put in the bank. And as a result of the particular interest rate that you may be garnering from putting that money in the bank, you will then 1 month earn, let's say, unfortunately, in the bank right now, it's 1%. I'm just going to use that hypothetically to keep it simple, but I'm going to tell you more. So you earn 1%. So let's say, I don't know, you have $100, you earn a dollar, okay? And so the next month you have $101. So then you will earn interest on the $101, right? So it's compounding. You're earning interest on the monies that you already put in, the principal, as well as the interest that you earned. But here is the beauty. The rule of 72, Pamela, is referred to as one of the eight or wonders of the world, right? So with the rule of 72, if you were to say, I have been earning 1%, and you take that 72 and divide it by 1%, that means your money will take 72 years to double. But if you were to take 72 and divide it by 2%, okay, so then that means at 36 years, that means it will take 36 years to double. So for whatever the rate of return you are receiving, you divide it by 72, and you will find how soon your money will double. So where there is an opportunity, Pamela, for you to invest, where you can at least be garnering, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10%. So for instance, if you were to be able to leverage a solution where you could garner 10% return on that money, then every 7 years, your money is going to be doubling. And that's what helped my grandfather. His money wasn't just in the bank where he was earning a nominal rate of return. He had his money in a solution that garnered a higher rate of return, which gave him the opportunity to accumulate more money to be saved for his family, for himself. It's a beautiful thing.
Thank you for explaining that because to some, when you hear compounding or rule of 72, it might sound like, oh, that's too much. It
Yes.
really is simple.
Yeah, it
It's
really is.
consistency.
And you know what that all boils down to this, because one of my passions around this work I do with personal finances is education, right? That's it. You referenced the fact that I was a banker. I was a banker, Pamela, for 20 years. But it was about 10 years ago that I really started or attended a workshop similar to the workshops that I conduct, where I really began to understand, the meaning of money and exactly how money works. And I sat in that workshop that night, Pamela, and I said, I was a banker for 20 years. And I'm sitting in this workshop and I'm learning money concepts that I didn't even learn in the bank. Do you hear me? No disrespect to the bank. They help us, do the transactional things we need to do. And it was a great career for me. However, to come in the knowledge of the fact that there are other ways to ensure that you can truly grow wealth that is not necessarily through the bank. It was mind boggling. But I knew that night, Pamela, that I would teach those money concepts for the rest of my life. And that's what I'm doing.
Excellent. I am interested in the kinds of questions and comments and concerns you, as a money educator, have been hearing over the last 6, 7, 8 weeks or so. And what are your answers to those concerns?
Oh my gosh. I I have been very busy. I have been very busy. People, and maybe I should say productive, but people are very concerned, not just about, their regular living expenses in terms of, how am I going to do groceries, how am I going to pay the car, how am I going to pay them, but they're looking at long term as well. And what I am finding, because there has been, this fluctuation in the market, the stock market, people are trying to figure out if I can retire ever. That's been
Mm.
the main question. And Pamela, forgive me, but here's what I'm finding. We are not asking the questions that we need to ask in terms of our 401ks or our TSPs. We don't really even know how the funds that we have in those accounts are actually earning interest. We don't know what interest crediting strategies we are applying to grow our money. We don't even want to look at what the balance is. But I'm having questions about, Rita, I keep seeing these red arrows. What are you recommending? So I started asking this question, just a simple question on social, or just a simple question to people who I may have been in my courses or in my workshops. And I'll say something like, so, John or Mary, in light of what we are experiencing in the market right now, tell me, how are you feeling about your money? And the floodgates open. And that's how I'm able to come alongside them with a conversation about what some possibilities are. At the very least, help stop the bleed. Now, Pamela, I'm sure you've heard people say the market is going to ebb and flow. You need to stay with it. Don't sell. Don't. That's relative to whomever you may be talking to. Because if you're talking to someone who's trying to retire in a year or two, they are at a place where they want to lock their money down into security because they're ready to come out. Um, a story is coming to mind. Story, stories help. There was a young man. He's probably 35 now. He works at, a major company, Philip Morris, here in the city of Richmond. And he said, Mrs. Stewart, I was at the lunch table with some gentlemen who were about to retire. And they had a fit because there was a recent drop in the market. I'm not talking about this current drop, but this was one a couple of years back. And as a result of it, they're sitting on $1 million, retirement funds and losing 100,000, 250,000. And Mrs. Stewart, they're saying they can't retire this year. They need to try to recoup some of this money. And so he said, Mrs. Stewart, I don't want to get to age 60, 65 and find out that I can't retire like I thought I would be able to because there's been a blip, a hiccup in the market, and I have to work another 2 to 5 years to recoup the funds. He said, there's got to be something else I can do. And I said, yes, 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 yes. There is something else you can do. And so then I gave him some other options, right? I'm not saying don't continue to contribute at age 35 to your 401k. There's a match. And also, I'm not saying take everything out the market at age 35, right? However, you can then start looking at an entity like a Roth IRA for one, right? And that could be a subset. But here's the difference. Pamela, we're used to the monies we can earn at the bank, and we're used to the monies we can earn in the stock market, right? But
Hmm.
what many don't know that is that there are other solutions out there where you can leverage an interest crediting strategy termed as an index account. And an
Mm.
index account is different from an index fund. Fund is in the market. Index account is where your monies are garnering a rate of return based on an indice. So if we were to say the S&P 500. So if the S&P 500 is tracking up, your crediting strategy, your earnings are going up. Market tracking up, earnings going up. But if there's a drop in the market, by leveraging an index account, your money locks and hold.
Mm.
because it's not directly tied in the stock market. It's just tracking with an indice, a market indice. When I first learned about the concept of an index account, I sat there and thought, are you kidding me? Why in the world don't other people know about this? Now, I will say to you that an index crediting strategy is a solution that's offered through insurance conglomerates. And I think that a lot of times when people think about insurance, they don't think about that's another solution that could be where I can grow some wealth accumulation. And it is. So with that young man, that's what helped him do. Continue to do what you're doing with your 401k, but here's another way that you can also leverage um, growth and accumulation. So yeah, yeah,
I'm wondering, in your work, do you see differences in the age groups and how they relate to money in general and now? Because what comes to my mind is people around our age,
hmm,
we know how to hunker down.
yeah, yeah,
So while we're concerned, our concern might be a little different because we're thinking about retirement. And
yeah,
then someone who has young children at home, they're on another track. And then you have these young people who are they just used to having money.
yeah,
So
yeah,
they think they've got all of this time. So I'm wondering, in your training, how do you see that difference and
yes.
how do you address that difference?
Yes. So the young people, they're used to having multiple streams of income, right? So they're not worried about it. They know that they can figure out a way to make money, right? But here's what I tell them, because I do coach a lot of young adults. Now, I coach them to the extent that they're listening and they're taking the next step. I don't have time to be wasted with them. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm like, you're not going to be wasting my time. But here's what I say to them. If you will take the time, I understand you making, because a lot of them are making a lot of money, right? And that is a wonderful thing. And yes, you should be able to live life as you choose to with this money that you're making. But you also need to make sure that you know, as I've said multiple times already, that you know where you stand. You need to be
Mhm.
able to tell your money what to do and how it is to be used. So if you will have the conversation and we look at your overall financial picture, even as a young adult, what's going in, what's coming out, you said how you want your money to be allocated and used, even designate a fun component to your money, then you will be able to breathe and you will be able to live. But when I can run projections from them to show them with this compound interest, Pamela, I have a sister named Pam. So, and so I
I'm
have
okay.
this,
I'm
yeah,
okay with it.
so I have this, that was, comes to mind for me, forgive me. But
That's
Pamela,
okay.
when, and that's, when I'm talking to them, I say to them, let's look at projections of what you can have with putting away 500 bucks a month or putting away 100 bucks a month. Wherever they need to start. I meet people where they are, even the young people. And when I can show them with that rule of 72, because you are 24 years old, and if you start putting away this $150 a month, you're talking 40 years, and many of them could hit $1 million, believe it or not,
Hmm.
then they're more inclined to say, oh, let me do this. And then with what's left, I can play. They can play. But the key is getting them to the table, is getting them into the workshops, right? Because a lot of times, some of us, we know everything, right? With the young adults, and they don't want to come to the table. And they figure they can always make another dollar sometimes. But when they listen, I show them solutions that most of the time blows their mind, to be honest. Especially families with young children. When I tell them what solutions they can put in place for their children and building and growing for their college funding and things like that. I remember one young mother said, "What's the catch?" Because she'd never heard of the index account. She was only familiar with the bank and the stock market, and I show her projections in terms of what the savings plan can look like for their children, they really are floored, just as I was as a banker, as I've learned these additional solutions that can be put in place to support families and individuals. So the hardest part is getting them to the table, I'll be honest, for the conversation. But once they're there, oh, they are so happy. Even my daughter, I remember because when I first introduced these concepts to her, she was 24. She's in grad school. She's 34 now, so it's been 10 years. Um, but at first, she did what mom suggested. But one of her peers is also in financial services. When she heard it from her peer, she listened more. Wait, she came back to me, Mom, what do I have in place? Can you explain to me exactly what I have? Because Jay said, I was going to say her name, Jay said ABCXYZ. And I was like, ah, so because you heard it from, right? So it just depends if you can get them to the table, the young adults. But once they get there, they see the big picture, they see what's possible, it's game on for them then.
That big picture language, it really is a budget. And when we
Yes.
hear the word budget, people shut down. They don't like budgeting because it sounds restrictive. And I work hard and I want to, you know, enjoy this. But I find so much freedom in a budget.
Yes.
I
Yes, it
really
is
do.
liberating because you know where you stand. And you're right, they don't like the B word. They don't like budget. I refer to it as spending plan just because just because many people shy away from the term budget. So you're exactly right about that. Um, but here's the thing. If people will stop and take the time, as you said, to look at the numbers and actually come to understand where they stand, that is my word as well. It is liberating. And then as a result of knowing where you stand, you truly can, people say, you shouldn't have Starbucks every day or every other day, whatever. If you've got your spending plan set up and everything is in order, you should be able to have whatever you want. I actually, Pam, I talk to individuals about ensuring that they have their emergency fund as well as their savings account. And they're like, what do you mean? Isn't it one the same? No. Your emergency fund is anywhere from 1 to 6 months, a year if you can, of your total expenses. So if your expenses are $1,000, at minimum, you need $1,000 over there in that emergency fund, prayerfully in a high yield savings account, because you want to have a decent return on that, right? Now, ultimately, you want to get that emergency fund built up to at least 3 months minimum. So if there's ever a hiccup in your income, money coming in, you know that you can take care of yourself. Your
Right.
savings account, that's a different thing. And even in the savings account, just like you tell your money what to do in the budget or spending plan, tell your money what to do. How is that? What's that savings account for? Okay. You know that the emergency fund is if there's a hiccup in your income coming, so you can still cover your expenses. The savings account, I'll use my own example. I have a category, one savings account, spreadsheet, category for home, category for car, category for long-term goals, and category for fun. Literally, right? 20% for the car, 20% for home, 40% for long-term goals, 20% for fun. So if I decide I want to go to tea every Friday afternoon, which I do, I can, because 20% of what I put away is I know I can have fun with it, right? If
Right.
I need new tires for the car or new battery for the car, you know that 20% of the funds sitting in that savings account is to take care of that car. If you need a new dryer, 20% of the funds sitting in that account in the savings account is for that dryer. So if you've already pre-allocated to tell your money in your savings account how it is to be used, that also gives you peace of mind. That is also liberating. But the opportunity we have is to do that, right? The opportunity we have is to be intentional, again, about telling our money what to do, how it is to be used.
I want to switch tacks for a minute.
Okay. I can see you
I'm wondering,
thinking.
in your training
Mhm.
in groups or one-on-one, are you having to come against money stories that people have brought into either from society or their families? Can you share a few of the common ones and what the antidote to those would be?
Oh my goodness. The first one, and I've mentioned it already, you've got to stop letting what's happening in the marketplace control the narrative of your thoughts around money. That's the first place. So you definitely have to make sure that you are you are aware of what your money position is. That's one thing. The second thing is people literally are afraid of online banks. People are afraid of right now banks in general, right? So and that's really old school because we know people with the mattresses and the tin cans and you all of that.
Yes, yes.
Well, if you were a person who grew up with a grandparent, I still have people come into my workshops with that thinking, right? Or if you were a person, Pamela, who grew up where money was just the bone of everybody's existence, right? Because there wasn't enough, right? Or there was always an argument about money. It takes a lot of work to help people understand that because it was that once that way with wherever you grew up, etc., that it doesn't have to be that way. So, in other words, there's a lot of opportunity for some mindset work that has to be done around money. And I'll give you one in particular for me personally. When you're one like yourself and me who grew up in the church, right?
Mm,
We grew up in the church. So we're supposed to be pious. We're not supposed to be wealthy. We're supposed
that's
to,
right. Right?
right?
Because
So,
money
because
is the
money,
root of
that's right.
all evil.
What the Bible said, the love of money is the root of all evil. But people hear money is the root of all evil. That's what they
Right.
hear.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all, when we as Christians talk about money, and I have even in my work, because I have served in the church on as staff on congregations, they'll say, "Well, what is Pastor Rita doing? What is this money thing she doing?" Because people have a stigma, literally around money. So for me, in that, if people are struggling financially, Pamela, they can hardly hear us when we're trying to share the gospel. Anyway, I know that wasn't quite where we were going, but it's for real,
Yes,
right? It,
yes,
it
yes.
literally is where it is. But in terms of people who have these blocks, if you will, the first thing is to support them in a polite way with recognizing it, because sometimes they don't even recognize it. And a lot of times I often say I do a workshop, it might be 30 people, but when I have a workshop with 10, that's nice. You know why? Because we can actually help people go there and have the conversations that we need, particularly when it's women in the room. No disrespect to our male, counterparts, but a lot of times we don't even realize. So I have to ask sometimes, what does money mean to you? What did money mean to you? Because a lot of times it's subconscious.
Yes.
And then when we bring it to the forefront, sometimes I can't even get people to move to the next step because they're still stuck because they come with these old thoughts about money. And that's when I recognize it now, and I realize I have to step back and figure out, okay, where are they stuck? Um, I'll use this example. I have someone right now that I'm working with. She's ready to retire within the next year. And all of her money right now is in the market. Do you hear me? All of it. She is literally stuck because she's been successful with her money in the market. But with
Mm-hmm.
the fact that the uncertainty that we're dealing with right now and the fact that she is within a year of retirement, she really needs to make a decision about what's next to ensure that she can secure what she has.
Mm-hmm.
But in her mind, I don't know at this point what to do. The only thing I have known to do is this. And as a result of that, she's doing nothing.
Nothing.
So it's
She's
real. It is real. There are people who will not open the envelopes, literally. But some of that comes from what they may have seen growing up. Some of that comes from if they witnessed the 2001 market crash that their parents may have experienced, then they're
Mhm.
carrying that. If they witnessed 2008, 2009, they're carrying that. So sometimes I literally have to figure out where they are. Even if I can propose the best solution forward for them, if they're stuck, I have to walk alongside them. That's where the ministry side comes in too. If that makes sense, right?
Yes, it does.
But you got to hear it. You got to hear it, and you got to know, and then you got to step back and then meet them where they are in their money story in order for them to move forward.
Um, when I posted about this
Mhm. Mhm.
on my Facebook page
Mhm.
today. And I
Mhm.
put down there that action is the best antidote to what we are feeling right now. Do
Yes.
something, move. If it's the wrong move, then you move this way, but you have to. So, when things started going left and right, I started making some conscious decisions, like
Yes.
not eating out every other day, not buying something every week. And it did not feel like a hindrance. It did not feel like a barrier. It really felt empowering. So
Yes.
I'm wondering if you have advice for people who are kind of in the middle. They're not young, where they have five, six, seven,
Yeah.
sources of income, and they know they can make some money on YouTube or social media, and they're not ready to retire.
Yeah.
They're run of the mill, right down the middle, still working, still having kids. What would your advice be to them?
I do truly feel right now in this economy, it is best to hunker down. I feel that there is an opportunity for you to ensure that you have a certain amount of money in liquidity versus what's in the stock market, et cetera. So here's a rule of thumb that I generally say to clients, and this can apply no matter what your age is. It's a 100% rule. And I say, so if you're age 50, I'll use that age. If you're age 50 and you're looking at 100% of what you have, then no more than 50% of what you have should be in the market. And then from there, you're talking about maybe 40% in a safe solution. And then 10 to 20% should be liquid such that you can get your hands on it as soon as you need to, right? It's not locked in a CD, it's not anywhere. You can get your hands on it. And there's a recommendation that a certain percent of that actually be cash on hand, not just what's in the bank. So if you've had the conversation with yourself and or your spending plan slash budget, you know where you stand. That's the first thing you need to do. As a result of that, like you have said, and we've said multiple times tonight, it is liberating. So then, when it comes to if you need to replace the black suit for work, then go ahead, okay? But do you need to eat out 3 days a week like you were doing? I don't think that is a good idea in this economy right now because of the uncertainty. Okay. So you figure out what do you like to have and can you prepare that crab cake at home versus going to the seafood restaurant and paying $30 for that crab cake, right? Because if
Right.
you prepare it at home, you can get four for 30. You get what I'm saying. I just don't think this is the time for us to be spending haphazardly. We have to be very intentional and understand where we know we are with our money. And also, if you have a need right now, take care of it. And if you have a want, it's okay, but you need to figure out what's the best way to go about getting that want. That's what I would say. So we don't want to, it's already stressful enough. So we don't
Right.
want to like be in a position where we're not giving ourselves some of the things we like in general. But you do need to be more careful right now because there's just so much uncertainty. I'm not saying be fearful. I'm saying be
Right.
careful and be mindful. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the freebie you've prepared for those who are watching.
Yes. So with the freebie, there's an opportunity for you to take a look at some key things that you can do, and please, by all means, make sure you take advantage of that. But some key things that you can do when you're looking at your overall financial wellness. So my business name is Legacy Financial Wellness, and my goal in that is to ensure that everyone is positioned in from a wellness perspective. So you see right there, it says tips to mind your money, right? Taking your savings seriously. Make sure you view your insurances and specifically where it relates to insurances, know where your beneficiaries are. Update them if you need to, whether it's on your insurance policies or whether or not it's on your bank accounts or your 401ks. In the industry, in the marketplace, I will tell you, there are times that they can't find the beneficiary or family dynamics have changed and you never went back and updated the beneficiary. So while you thought one family was going to get what you wanted them to have, the other family is still going to get, you didn't split things. Watch those beneficiaries. Many people think that they don't have an estate, so I don't need an estate plan. That is not true. We all own something. Be sure that you share with other people or your loved ones how you would want the things that you possess, whether it's your money, your cars, whatever the case may be, how you would want those things to be allocated or taken care of. Think of it this way: if your parents or a aunt or uncle were to pass away and you have no idea as to what their final wishes are, so it's hard to make a decision and that can cause chaos. I've also served as a hospice chaplain, and I can tell you I've seen night and day. I've seen where there are families who have literally had the conversations, Pamela, about what their wishes are from a will or estate or trust perspective, and there are families who have not, right? Taking the steps. And it is night and day, the grieving process. Oh my goodness. And then you're coming in as clergy trying to walk them through that process. So take a look at that freebie because there are solutions that you need to consider that you may not have even thought about. Pay attention to your credit, right? Pay attention to getting out of debt. Those things we need to be mindful of because even like right now in the marketplace that we're dealing with, we don't need to have a whole lot of credit right now if we can help it. But I will say this because this is important. Do not forfeit savings to get out of debt. I am not saying don't pay your, debt. Pay your debt. But right now you need to be in saving mode. You need to be in saving mode. A lot of people will say, I don't have any money to save because I got to get out of debt. No, 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 no. You need to figure out a way to do it in tandem. And if you're at a place where you don't have enough money to do it all, then that means you need some more income. Okay. You got to figure it out. You got to figure, but do not, because here's the thing, Pamela. If you focus on paying off the debt, paying off the debt, paying off the debt, and then there's an emergency, a hiccup happens, you don't have any money. You haven't saved it.
Right.
So as a result of that, you're going to go back to that credit card. That's not optimal. That's not what you want to do. So you got to, I don't care if you start with $25 a pay. I don't care what it is, but you
Right.
need to start. Here's another thought that comes to mind that I talk to my clients about. Be ready, willing, and able to say no when certain invitations come. If it's not a part of your money plan, you need to be strong enough to say no. So
Yes.
I'm going to give an example or a story. I remember it was going to be my sister's 50th birthday, and the whole family was going on a nice vacation. That wasn't part of my money plan, right? So I thought, I'm not going because I have travel goals for myself. But of course, my mother, all of her children, all of the nieces and nephews. So you know what I did? In my china cabinet, I took a coffee cup. And every time, literally, I had a $5 bill. And I'm a money person, but this is what I did. Every time I had a $5 bill, I stuck it in the cup, stuck it in the cup, stuck it. 'Cause of course, if you're planning a, a tropical vacation, there's some lead time. Do you know $5, $5, $5? Now, when I went on that vacation, because I did go, when I went on that vacation, those $5 carried me the entire week. I never pulled out a credit card.
See?
I never, ever. I still was able to go. It did not take away from my personal plans or my personal goals from a financial perspective. Certain meals, like if they ate out every morning at the, I mean, at the hotel, I didn't do that because that was going to cost more money. Starbucks was across the street. People would think Starbucks would be more money, but in this case, it wasn't. I took care of myself. And it did not bother me that I didn't do all the fancy dinners. I'm at this tropical island. I got to see the beach. I got to be with the family, but I wasn't spending all the extra money. And I was able to go and enjoy it within my means. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense? So you got to say no. I remember another time, another story, someone, group of ladies going on a cruise. And I'm sharing these things because these things are reality that people deal with.
Right.
They're going on a cruise, right? Do you want to go on the cruise? The ladies, I said no. And my sister was like, dang, you said no fast. I was like, because that's not somewhere I want to go. like, like, I mean, if I just had money flowing to do that, but I have other vacation goals. That's not one. So it's easy for me to don't let other people dictate what you can and can't do. Here's
Mm-hmm.
another thing that we need to remember, Pamela. Be mindful of the conversations or the change in people's behaviors in your inner circle. If you are used to going to brunch once a month or every Sunday with your friends and somebody is pulling back, take note of that. Don't shun them for that. Take
Mhm.
note. Now, if you can say, "Hey, come on my treat this time," like if you notice they've been backing off, respect that. Give them the space that they need. The other thing is people may be avoiding the mail, right? Or you may be at corporate and everybody's putting in for somebody's baby shower or bridal shower. You can't force that upon people because we don't know what people's money situation is.
Right.
So we got to be mindful of those acts. And I know this seems so simple, but there's already enough stressors, particularly right now around finances, that
Yeah.
if someone says no, it's no. If they're saying they're not going to participate in the, I don't know, the basketball pool, whatever the case may be, let it be because we don't know. And don't
Right.
let someone force you, right? Don't be intimidated or feel bad because you can't do it.
Right. Now,
Yep.
you mentioned credit earlier, and I know
Mhm.
that's not your
Yeah.
purview,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
I wanted to shout out to Kyra Dodd. She's a friend of ours, and she would have been
Yes.
here tonight, but she had a family emergency. She had some credit issues, and she started an award-winning company that helps people address their credit. So I just thought about that. I'm going to put up her website is creditcleanse.com, creditcleanse.com. She teaches people how to take control of their credit. She has courses on her website. She has a newsletter, very personable, bite-sized chunks. Credit is more important than we think it is. And some people, when they're younger, they're not mindful of that. So I just thought about that. And we'll make sure that you get that information. Tell us about the book that you brought.
Yes, I will. I'm going to say one more thing since we had the
Mhm,
credit thing. With credit
mhm.
cards, there is nothing wrong with credit cards. You just need to be strategic about it, right? So you need to determine what's the purpose of it. If there is a way for you to, like for me, my daughter lives on the West Coast, so I have to fly to see my child, right? So I use that American Express card to what? Garner those frequent flyer points.
Oh,
I
points.
use it strategically. But every Sunday evening, I'm paying that American Express card off. So if you want it for frequent flyer miles, if you want it for hotel points, whatever the case may be, but be smart about it and leverage it for what you need and not carry the debt on it, right? If at all possible. If you are carrying some debt, you want to make sure that it's not over 30%. So let's say the credit limit is 1,000, then you don't want to carry more than 300%, excuse me,
$300.
$300 on that card because that'll help keep your credit score, within a decent range, et cetera. So the bottom line is this: if you're going to use a credit card, just be strategic about it. That's all I'm saying. And if you're not disciplined enough, leave them alone. I'll say that. Just leave them alone. So the book. So I mentioned that the work I do is education based, right? So we host workshops throughout the United States pretty much every night of the week. One is called Money 101, and one is referred to as Wine, Women, and Wealth. And I also do personally a Money Matters and Tea. So the book that you see noted there, Wine, Women, and Wealth, is actually written by one of my business partners. And in it, she has written stories about women that we've actually come alongside and supported with their money journey. It's incredible. It's really an incredible book because they're real stories and how and where they were, some of the shame, some of the hurt, some of the misconceptions, all of that, and how different women have been able to turn their money stories around from brokenness to wellness. So that's what the book is about, and I'm just looking forward to sharing it to the person who will be able to have it. What do we want? We're going to get your email address. How are we going to do this in terms of selecting a person? You know that, Pamela.
Yes, I think we're going to have the producer choose someone,
Okay,
and
okay.
then we will get the email address, and then we'll get that book out to that lucky person. I
Yes.
just had before we close, I just had a thought pop in my head.
Yes, go ahead.
Tell us something about your money journey. Tell us something about, I don't know, bottom falling out, something that
Yes.
was
Mhm.
challenging, and then something else.
Well, I can say this. I can easily, have the conversations and stand before my clients one to one or in my workshops because I have had personal financial hiccups as well. And my husband is actually a retired banker. So we've both been bankers pretty much all of our career until I transitioned to ministry. We, the 2008, 2009 stock market crash, my husband was actually a mortgage broker. And that's also the time when the housing bubble, right?
That's right.
That was also, my daughter was about to graduate high school. So she's about to go off to university. I had already left corporate for the church. I was making $17,000 a year in the congregation. You hear me? And I remember, because we were in transition, my daughter said, well, does anybody have a job? Right? Like, because all of this was happening. And then the housing bubble, the stock market crash. I was like, oh my gosh. But I trusted, I knew that God, would see us through. And of course he does, and he did. But I will say this, it probably was good that that happened because our daughter is an only child, right? Both of us in corporate, she never had to worry about anything, but she witnessed that glitch. So that was a good thing, right? That she saw that. And the other thing I will say, I remember my prayer was, Lord, I'm going to heed your call, but please don't, have our daughter to suffer in terms of her transitioning to university. And of course, God worked it out. But yeah, we were able to, sustain everything. I did have a retirement plan. So in that case, that took us through. We did see the 2008, 2009 and the impact on those accounts. Um, so I know. But again, my grandparents and my mom, I grew up in a single parent household. My mom was one who kept a yellow legal pad and she would write everything out, Pamela, everything out. So that's how she kept everything in order. So while we did not have much, I witnessed her being very meticulous about how she applied what she had. So I never felt that we were in lack. I never had to witness that. And then for us, both being bankers, our daughter did get to learn how to kind of do this thing better or right, if you will. And then that 2008, 2009 hiccup, it was good that my daughter had to witness that. Um, because otherwise she had had everything. I'm not saying, it was overboard in what she had, but we had to teach her why we were pulling back, right?
Hmm.
And so she had to
Hmm.
witness that. As after we got through that, we pretty much lived a pretty frugal life. Like I won't say frugal, we've enjoyed life, but I'll use this example. Like I'm thinking about the home we live in now. You know how you can go to the real estate agents and they say and the bank say you qualify for 3 times X or whatever. And we were like, nope, this is the most we want to pay for our house. I don't care how much more you say we can have. And that has been to our favor to this day. We stayed right aligned with what we knew, how much of a mortgage or a home we wanted to buy. You have to stand your ground. You have
Mm.
to know where you stand because they'll look at these two, individuals with these six-figure salaries and they'll assume that you can have a house, like again, 3 times bigger than what you're thinking. No, be positioned right and ready to say no. But you can't do that if you don't know where you stand. So look at your numbers. Don't shy away from that. Take the
Yes.
time. So yeah, my money story wasn't simple. It wasn't all bells and whistles, but I did have a good example in what my grandfather did and watching my mother with that yellow pad. Yeah.
Okay, so you said it more than once here. Tell us the 2 or 3 teachings that you have.
Oh, yes. So one of the workshops that we do is entitled Money 101. And that's
Hmm.
where we get into those intricacies about additional interest crediting strategies that we can build wealth with. So that's Money 101. Then Wine, Women, and Wealth. And that's where the women come together. We network. And of course, we talk about money solutions. And we also are very particular about ensuring that only women are in that class. As a result of that, we want women to have a safe space that is generally held in person, and also I host it virtually sometimes. And then I also, because I love tea, I actually host a Money Matters and Tea workshop as well. So my Instagram handle is actually Money Matters and Tea. So I often invite individuals. I host those virtually sometimes at a tea shop in my neighborhood. But virtually, I will come together with the women, Pamela. I'll have my cup of tea. I invite them to bring their cup of tea. And we talk about what flavor we're drinking, and then we get into money. We get into techniques about money. So it's just, It's just good. It's just I just love this work. I absolutely love the work because I know that as a result of us ensuring that we are in a well position around our money, then we can thrive. We can thrive. And we are
Excellent.
positioned to give, right? To give. So that's important. So yeah, I love this work. Thank you for that question.
Perfect. And what is your website? Where can we find you online?
My website is legacyfinancialwellness.com and on Instagram, Money Matters and Tea. Yeah.
Okay. Rita, I want to thank you so much for coming by, sharing all of this knowledge. I hope that people are feeling uplifted and encouraged that it just takes a small step.
Yes.
You don't have to have all the answers, just going to move out.
That's
Um,
exactly right.
And I want to thank everyone for stopping by today for our first Thursday Night Live. We'll come back again next month this time, and I'll have a whole nother one. I want to thank you for joining me. I'm Pamela Nichols. I'm a writer, I'm a podcaster, I'm a life coach. I help women to overcome deception, spiritual deception in their lives, to recognize God's love for them, and to rest in his plan for their lives. So I want to thank
Amen. Amen.
everyone, and we will see you next time. Also, I didn't say my website. My website is www.pamelawrights.org. So drop by there to see some Christian fiction and nonfiction and some of the other things I have planned coming up. Thank you so much again, Rita.
You are welcome. Thank you, Pamela.
And thank you, everyone. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.